Hey guys, Cam Talks Tech here, and all I can say is holy shit, MacBooks. Apple just announced two MacBook Pros, a 14-inch and a 16-inch, that both feature a complete design overhaul. But not only design overhaul, also brand new chips in these things. So before we hop in and talk about the design, let's talk about the new chips that are powering these things. These new MacBook Pros are powered by the next generation of Apple Silicon, and a lot of people thought that the new chips were going to be called the M1X or the M2. Apple kind of threw everyone for a loop and announced two different chips this year. So we're going to go over some of the specs and comparisons to see how they stack up against previous models. First up, we have the M1 Pro. The M1 Pro features a up to 10 core CPU, up to 16 core GPU, and up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is a pretty big jump already from last year's M1 chip that only allowed you to go up to 16 gigabytes of RAM, and it was only an 8 core CPU total. But that's not even the best chip of them all. Apple also announced the M1 Max, which is also that same 10 core CPU, but you can actually configure it up to 32 cores for the GPU and up to 64 gigabytes of RAM. To be specific, the M1 Pro has 70% better CPU performance and 100% better graphics performance. But that's not all. The M1 Max, since it has that same CPU, it also gets that same 70% performance on the CPU. But since you can upgrade it to 32 cores on the GPU side of things, you can have up to 4 times graphics performance boost, which is absolutely wild. Even with these super powerful chips, Apple has managed to squeeze all of this extra performance while still maintaining fantastic battery life. The 14-inch model has up to 17 hours of video playback and up to 11 hours of wireless web browsing, while the 16-inch model has up to 21 hours of video playback, which is the longest battery life in a Mac ever, and up to 14 hours of wireless web browsing. So needless to say, these chips are going to be awesome because of how much power we're going to get while still being able to make these things last all day long and on the go for whenever you're needing new projects. So one of the reasons the MacBook Pro is so appealing to me is that when I'm at home, I can just dock it with a cable and I can hook up an external keyboard and mouse and have basically a desktop setup. But then when I'm on the go, I can still have that exact same performance at the ready. And, if I need to dump some footage onto my machine or edit something while I'm at an airport or even just traveling in a car, I still have that power and I'm not going to be sacrificing anything just because I'm unplugged. After they were done showcasing the chips, that's when they moved on to the actual design changes. And might I say, ports, and more ports. Apple basically wiped the slate clean, removed all the last 3 years of them forcing us to use those same freaking 4 ports where they've required us to use those dongles because nobody likes dongles. But they've said, hey, we're going to listen to the community and actually give them ports and uses that they actually want and need. So one of the very first additions that they actually added back was the Magsafe Charger. And as most of you know, the Magsafe is just a little magnetic connector. I think the greatest appeal to that is if you were to trip or hit the cable, it would actually detach from the machine instead of making the machine fall off. And a lot of people did not like that when they removed it on the 2016 model because the USB-C cables were in there actually pretty tight. So if you were to hit it, a lot of times the machine was falling off of the table or wherever you have it set. So I think the Magsafe charger is going to be a really welcome addition back, and that's going to be super exciting to have back and be able to use. Apple also includes 3 USB-C 4 ports. They're adding back an HDMI, and hallelujah, they're adding the SD card slot back, which is going to be great for video creators or photographers. That way they're able to dump all their footage back or their photos back without having to, lug and actually plug in the cable to the camera. They'll just be able to pull the card out and plug it right back in the machine. Some other design changes that Apple decided to make is they actually removed the touch bar from the keyboard. Instead, they've opted for a full-size function key row, and they still are giving us the option for Touch ID in the top right. But a pretty interesting topic was that with the display, they now have a notch attached to it. And a lot of people think, oh, well, there's a notch, so obviously there's going to be Face ID, right? Wrong. So just because there's a notch, that does not exactly mean that we are getting Face ID in this model, and in fact, we definitely are not. They made room for a 1080p camera and an ambient light sensor, but that's about its only use case. But I think it's going to be fine because they're using that extra real estate. They shrunk the bezels on the right and the left, and they're actually allowing it to be for the menu bar. So in this case, we're actually going to be getting a little bit of extra screen real estate. And when you're using apps in full screen, it really goes just under the notch, so it kind of hides anyway. But the display has been majorly upgraded. This year we are getting the 120 Hz ProMotion display, and that is going to be a huge welcome addition to this because it's just going to feel a lot faster and a lot smoother. The way they're achieving this is with mini LED, which is actually the same technology that they used on the iPad Pros from last year that they put the M1 chip in. So this will allow us to have 1000 nits of brightness and up to 1600 nits peak brightness, and we're able to see HDR content, edit, and see it natively right on the laptop display, which is going to be huge. I'm very excited to see what this display looks like because it's going to be a huge upgrade compared to previous models. With all that being said, I think Apple made a bunch of huge improvements with this iteration of the MacBook Pro. I think that we're finally moving on from those not so great years of the past 3 years, finally getting those ports back, and we're actually seeing Apple take into consideration what the consumers are really wanting. And I think that's huge. Like, you know, if it comes at the cost of, you know, making the device a little bit bigger just to have a bigger battery, or, you know, adding some ports back for some extra connections, I think that is huge for Apple to be making those steps and listening to the consumers. And so with that being said, I have a 16-inch MacBook Pro on pre-order, and we will be getting it on release day according to Apple currently. We'll see if that stays that way. It comes in next Tuesday. So we will be unboxing that here on the channel. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way when that goes live, you'll be one of the first to see that, because there are a lot of people that ordered it and it was back ordered a long time. So hopefully we're one of the first channels to have you know, legitimate unboxing on YouTube. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you on the unboxing. And also we have an iPhone 13 Pro video coming soon. Peace.